Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Today Show. I'm your host, Cynthia Stone, and I'm delighted to be joined here by Shirin Ariff on International Women's Day, no less. Thank you for being here and taking time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you very much for having me here. Happy Women's Day to everyone.
Amazing. Now, why it is especially delightful that she's here, she is a remarkable woman who has overcome adversity, has triumphed in the face of what many people would say insurmountable obstacles. She has published books, she is a speaker, a motivational person, and someone that the world needs to hear. They need to hear her story, and that's why we are so blessed to have you here on our show. Amazing. So without further ado, let's go right into it. Now, growing up, you grew up in India, correct?
Yes, I did.
And tell me about what that was like in terms of diversity.
Well, it was fun growing up in my family because at home itself, my mom came from a Hindu background. My dad's family is Muslim. I had an aunt who was Chinese,
Wow.
and an aunt who was half Jewish. Her mother is Jewish. My cousins and my sister, they're married in a Punjabi community.
Wow.
We have Bengalis. We have, you name it. It's United India.
See, very often people think India is just one type. No, not at all.
Yeah.
Now, and the differences didn't just stem from that. So we also have able-bodied, and can you go into that?
Yes. So I was born in a family where my dad had many brothers and sisters. Of them, I had two aunts who were disabled, and I had an uncle who was disabled. And because I was born to see them the way they were, I didn't really know if being disabled was something different from being able. So I thought this was the whole spectrum of being normal and abled. So some people look like this being able, like me, and some people look the way my aunt and my uncle looked. And I would say this would be the biggest tribute I'd love to give my aunts and my uncle, but especially my aunts on Women's Day, that a lot of my abilities are gifts from them.
Beautiful.
And the things that they taught me, the artwork, the craft work, the cooking, they were so enterprising.
Wow.
They were so abled, and they were so gifted that they are a part of me. Whatever my abilities are, gifts from them.
Wow. See, that's truly beautiful. So growing up there, you didn't see any differences. You just saw that they were sharing and imparting their wisdom, their gifts.
Yes.
And I recall you sharing a story at one point where when they would come in crutches.
Oh, yes. So this was funny. My sister and I, we were very young, must have been about 8 or 10 years old. And we had people coming to our homes sometimes in crutches. And as a child, I would be so intrigued. My sister and I would take sticks and try to, prop ourselves on those sticks and walk like them, because we thought that was a special ability to be able to walk in crutches. So we loved it, and we wanted to. It was fun. It was so much fun, and we used to think, how do these people do it? How do they walk on crutches? So it was interesting. We had a totally different perspective.
Yes, a totally different perspective.
Yes.
And what a remarkable perspective it is, and it's so refreshing to hear that.
Yes.
Now let's go now to the transition.
Yes.
So you coming here now, and what that was like.
So after I came here, it's a little, I feel the topic of disability has a little bit of tension in it. I felt I had to be very careful about using that word itself, as if there's a negative connotation attached to it. And especially when I had paralysis after 6 months of landing here, but the right side of my face was paralyzed, my one eye wouldn't close, and I had a lot of difficulty in eating my food because I would drool. So I felt disabled. And my ex-husband at that time actually made me so present to how miserable it could be to be disabled, was when he said, "You got to fix your face. I know it runs in your family. There were a lot of disabled people. I'm not used to seeing people like that. So fix your face." And that's when I went into a shell and I began to discover the dark side of what it is to be disabled and how people could treat you. That was a totally new narrative I had in my life. And what I realized from that was the real disability is in the mind.
Go on. Tell me more about that.
The real disability is in the mind. So, when I had the paralysis and when I began to make myself small and diminished and not, as if something's wrong with me after I've had the paralysis. I am not that same normal, person that I was. I had to kind of step down from what the expectations are about the way I look. So that was what made me disabled when I kind of compromised and I didn't feel good about looking in the mirror, didn't feel good. I was so conscious of the way I eat that I would apologize to people that I would sit with on a table and say, "Hey, you should know this, but that I'm not eating badly because I don't know how to eat, but I have a disability." So to be so to have to give explanations like that, I felt very disabled. I wouldn't want to be in pictures. I wouldn't want to stare at myself in the mirror. That is real disability.
Absolutely. And I would say that our society as a whole is the one with a disability. When you look at the North American perspective and how we are othering and how we are looking down on people that don't fit some kind of mold, and whose mold is that anyways? Whereas it seemed like when you grew up, India was very inclusive, it was very beautiful, it was a true exchange of energy where people were truly giving and receiving and uniting everyone. And that, to my mind, is what a healthy community looks like.
Yes.
So moving on to healthy then, how were you able to bridge where you were at that point, which sounds pretty rock bottom, to now being the beautiful shining star you are today?
I did a lot of work on myself. So I was totally disempowered. I thought I didn't feel very good about being myself after all that I experienced. And then eventually I had cancer, which further disabled me because after my surgery, they took away my thyroid gland and my voice changed.
Wow.
So I was not, in the beginning, my voice sounded hoarse all the time. It was as if I have a bad cold and I just couldn't sing. So to this day, I am not able to sing. I can't take a high pitch. I can't change the scales. And a lot of the I can't is what's in my space. But I've been working on myself, and I've done a lot of courses on self-empowerment and leadership, not with the intention of leading someone else, but leading myself. And while doing that and following a certain discipline of connecting with myself and the willingness to bring myself back to who I was or go beyond that, was when I when I practiced meditation or spending time with myself, acknowledging myself and my body for serving me through this journey in life, for all the difficulties that I went through. When I recognized all the stress that my body went through and the way it has supported me, and I started acknowledging myself, that's when I shifted.
Oh, amazing. They say that shift happens, and that is definitely what happened here. And it's interesting you talk about meditation, and I think that the important two letters of that are me.
Yes.
And it's getting back to me. And so many of us become human doings. We're so focused on what we're doing and what we're able to do, and we're not human beings anymore. And to be a human being is just to be. And it sounds like you've really come into your own and you recognize your beingness. And with that has come so much momentum.
Yes.
I mean, you are a mover and a shaker. I mean, you talk about not being able to hit high notes. Sweetheart, you are living a high note. You are just hitting high note after high note after high note. I mean, let's talk about your books. You have a poetry book.
Yes.
Please go on.
Yes. So the poetry book is from my meditation. It's a gift. It's from that state of flow. So as a ritual, I get up in the mornings at around 4 o'clock. That's me time because all my kids are asleep. And after I meditate, I am in my purest state of mind. And whatever thoughts flow at that time, I would write it down. So I didn't write the poems and I wrote poetry. I somehow feel it's easier for me to write poetry than to write prose. And so I wrote these poems in a little diary, not knowing that it'll become a book someday. So each poem has a pure thought, let's say on diversity or on inclusiveness, or the art of living in the moment, living in the now, or about silence, the beauty of silence. There are different topics on which I've written these poems. And then a friend of I showed one of the poems to a friend of mine who's an illustrator, and we were going to put it up at an event. Actually, it was the Aga Khan's Diamond Jubilee celebration, and so I offered the poem as my contribution. And she saw that, and she's the illustrator of my book, and she's done a beautiful job.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look
my
at this.
Book is called Keepsake, and she's done a beautiful job of, that's her gift to me, and the illustrations are very, very, very beautiful. And what she did was, she read one poem, and then she said, "You have more." And I said, "Yes, I do." And I thought she'd pick another one. Maybe she didn't like this one. And what she did was, she illustrated all of them, and then she put it in a book. And she printed this book for me and gave it to me. So this is my first copy. And she gave it to me as a gift.
The book wrote itself.
Yes. It just showed up in my life.
Wow.
So this is one book that I've written, and the other book is in production. It's on my life, on my struggles, and how I overcame it. And my message is to the readers that if I can deal with whatever I dealt with and I could overcome it, so can you. So the book is to empower other people who read it.
What's the book called?
It's called The Second Wife.
The Second Wife.
It's like living the life of a second-class citizen. You're a nobody.
Yes.
And when you're in that state, how do you pull yourself out of that and become your own body?
Amazing. So in there are tips and tricks, what's worked
Yes.
for you.
Yes.
And I mean, you talk about not wanting to be a leader necessarily.
Yes.
But by taking the lead in your own life,
Yes.
you've inspired so many.
Well, that's the legacy I want to leave behind for my kids. I have 3 daughters and a son.
Amazing.
And, the story of my life is the legacy I want to leave behind for them, so that they're empowered. When they look back, they know that their mother went through things. Life is not rosy and not like a fairy tale. Things happen. But, you have the gift to be able to overcome it if you choose to.
Absolutely. That is beautiful. They talk in a proverb, they say that there are 2 wolves inside of us. Which wolf do you feed? Do you feed the defeated wolf, or do you feed the wolf that just keeps on going? And it sounds like you made the right choice. We're definitely very happy to have you here. Now, if people want to hear more from you and be able to even be inspired one-on-one, how can they reach you?
So I do have a website. It's called Be Your Own North Star. So the website is basically, it's going to hold a course, an online program that people can access to how they can, they'll access that so that they can learn how to be their own guiding force in life.
I love that.
Sometimes when you don't have people around you to tell you what to do, or they're not able to empower you, then you go back inwards and kind of recollect yourself, put yourself together and start again.
Absolutely. I often compare it to being lost like a fart in the wind. Now, pardon the imagery, I know you all pictured it there. But truly, when we align with the divine, it can really help to silence your mind and keep you in the flow. And I think that that's truly what we need to do.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. So we are unfortunately going to wrap it up. I know I want her here much longer as well. Maybe we'll just finish it if you could read one of your poems, just to titillate our readers with one final moment of inspiration. This is an amazing book, by the way, and to capture your copy of it, they can check out their local bookstore.
They can check out at shirinariff.com.
Okay, perfect. Yes, there
Thank
you go.
you. So I'll read this. It's called Quietude, and I'm celebrating silence. The quiet mountains, the silent trees, the moving waters with not a tease of words and sounds to please or displease. The single sun, the speechless skies. Time stands still while floating by. My heart is filled with its silent beat, and what I see is for me to keep.
Thank you for
Thank you.
watching.